What's up, guys? My name is Evan Dixon, and you are listening or watching the N Word podcast with Evan Dixon. I'm your host. This is going to be a podcast that talks about life insurance. I want it to be a safe place. We can talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of life insurance. I want those stories about family members and people you know who got life insurance and how it affected their family. But I also want to know those stories about people who may have thought they had life insurance and they may have had accidental death instead of regular life insurance. So when they died and it was an accident, the family didn't get any of the money. I want to know all of those stories. I want to know stories where people may have thought they got a permanent policy and they were sold on a permanent policy, but they really got a term. I want to know everything because the more we know and the more we hear, then we're more informed and we can make better decisions and make sure that these companies that may have agents that are tricking people will not be allowed to get away with it any longer. Okay, so I'm going to start episode 1 off with telling you my story, the reason why I sell life insurance, and the great man who in my family is still a hero to this day. Allow me to paint a picture for you. It is the early 50s, and my mother is only 5 years old. She has a little sister that's 2. She has a big sister that's 7 and a big brother that's 9 years old. They're all outside with their mother and their father. The dad is waxing the car. Her dad is actually my grandfather, Herbie Dula. Now, he's cleaning the car and he talks to my grandmother and he tells her, you know what, when we're done with this later on today, let's go watch a picture show and then maybe we can get some ice cream with the kids. I mean, I picture it like if you ever seen a man waxing a car, he can sit out there and wax that thing all day. And when I think about the 50s and a man that owns his own land and built the house and he has his wife and he has his children, I don't think there's a better time that you could be alive. Now, mind you, we ain't gonna get into the racial discrepancies with the 50s. I'm just talking about as a man with your wife, with your kids, own a house, own some land, own a car. Pretty amazing to me. My grandfather was 32 years old. They get a guy comes down the road and says, hey, such and such is doing what he does. He's arguing with his mom. He's been drinking, and he's got a gun, got a shotgun. My grandfather, who didn't own a gun, says, okay, thank you for telling us. He takes my uncle and my aunts and my mother and my grandmother in the house, and he says, let me talk to him, calm him down, get him back home, and then we'll go and we'll catch that picture show. So my mother says she remembers watching my uncle as he's in the threshold of the door, 9 years old, looking at his hero, his father, and he's looking at him as he approaches the drunk man, and the man lifts the gun and he shoots and he kills my grandfather, point blank range, with a double barrel shotgun in the head. My grandmother says that as they're trying to get to the hospital, she's trying to put his brains back in his head. My mother remembers seeing my uncle slide down the door. As he saw that, I can't imagine what he was thinking, but it had to be that my hero is gone, that I'm the only boy now. My grandfather just died 9 months prior. Now I'm the only male around. It's my great grandma, it's my grandmother, my mother, and my 3 children. I'm speaking in my uncle's perspective of how he had to feel. I wonder about a lot of things that probably changed that day. The dynamic of the family definitely changed. I wonder if my grandfather would have still been here. If my mother would have gotten pregnant at 17, would I be here? A lot of things change in a blink of an eye. But what was amazing about my grandfather was that he had life insurance. And when I talk about it, I can't help but to try to understand this man's proactive movement to be 32 years old and to have all the things that I just said: own your house, have some land, have a car, have your firstborn is a son, and then you got daughters after that. You got a beautiful wife. What more would you need to feel untouchable and unstoppable? But for some reason, this man had life insurance. And with that life insurance, my mother and my aunts and my uncles, they were able to play sports. They were able to do the cheering, which we know costs a lot. They were able to do dance, tap, jazz, and ballet. My aunt played instruments. All of them did, but my aunt played this instrument called the saxophone, alto sax. I mentioned that specifically because growing up and going into Nana's basement, I always saw that saxophone sitting over there. I fell in love with the saxophone. I played the alto, I played the tenor, and I played the bari. Or the baritone sax. I had an awesome music teacher. I believe his name was Mr. Bill, but I loved that instrument. And it's crazy when you think that a 32-year-old man in the 50s, without knowing, but thinking about his family and wanting to be a provider and a protector if the unthinkable happened, to be a provider and a protector from the grave, was able to affect a generation later and give me a love for an instrument. See, when we think about life insurance right now in 2024, all we think about is what can it do for me while I'm alive? My grandfather never had that thought in his head. And the living benefits are amazing. They're awesome. There's something great, and it's an extra. But life insurance is for a true provider and a true protector to say, hey, I'm going to provide and protect whether I'm here or not. I'm providing and I'm protecting my family. Now, it wasn't always roses. The whole story isn't great from getting life insurance. My grandmother went into a certain bank that she still to this day won't tell me the name of. And she wanted to invest it in some stocks or something. She knew that this money, if she invested it, would be able to multiply and it would be able to help more generations. But we're dealing with the 50s. They didn't want her little piece of black money, and they walked her right out of there. Think about the hurt that she had to deal with and the shame of that. But Herbie Dula, a young boy, me at 38 now, I say a young boy, a young man of 32 years old, had the foresight to have life insurance. And now my family, my daughters, I have 5 daughters, and they know Herbie Dula. They know that 3 generations ago, a man thought well enough about his family that he affected 2-3 generations. And one reason they're here is because of him. He was able to get my mother to be able to pay for the things to help my mother be able to live and breathe and be who she was going to be. And in turn, she was able to put that in me. If I'm not mistaken, he was the first black PTO president in our area. Then I went to NC State. I met my wife. We had these girls, and they hear the story of how important it is. And they also know because that's what Daddy sells. Daddy helps clients get life insurance so they have the peace of mind that if something happens that is out of their control, like you drive down the street and you're sober and you're watching and you're perfect and a drunk driver hits you, that they will leave enough for their family to be able to pay off the mortgage, pay off the car, have enough money for if the kids need to go to college. How many kids you got? Okay, we need that much money. When you deal with my insurance firm, Dixon Financial, or Dixon Insurance, whichever way you want to look it up, www.dixonfinancial or www.dixoninsurance, you'll find us, DXN Insurance. It says Dixon, but we have no vowels, dxninsurance.com. You will see that we have a place just to get a financial review, because we need to know how much money you're going to need for those kids to go to college. How much money you're going to need to pay off your house. We can't just say, well, let's give you $250,000 worth of life insurance. You might need $300,000. You might need $150,000. We're going to customize your experience so that you get what you need, and that's what life insurance is amazing for. So that's my story. I don't want to get into. I get so excited. I start telling you about different products and stuff. That's not what we're here for. This is literally just to talk about the stories that people have. But episode 1, we're gonna go a little bit off. I want y'all to know what I do and the love I have for it and why my love is there for it. Excuse me. I'm not just somebody just talking about it. I've really lived this. I'm really a beneficiary of someone who got life insurance. But I've also heard stories as I help my clients, and they're so standoffish at first. And that's what made me do this podcast, because there's so many stories of people who were tricked, who were fooled. You'll be surprised. I have a friend who's I believe it was his mother and his mother's brother were both tricked, because fast talking, less reading, and not really having a good idea or not knowing an expert to talk to, you get caught up and you say, oh, well, this is cheaper than that. I'm gonna go with this one. Yeah, but this one may only be for accidental, where this one is no matter what happens to you, you get that money. This one may be for a certain amount of time. This one may be for the rest of your life. So that's my story about a great hero, Herbie Dula from Lenoir, North Carolina, born in Dulatown, North Carolina, that was 32 years old and he was murdered. But at 32, he had the foresight to get life insurance. A funny thing is when I go and I speak with groups of people and I tell this story, at the end I always have to bring it back, because one day my nana came to me and she said, I love that you think so highly of your grandfather, but he didn't want to get that policy. She said they sat on the porch right after her dad had died. He died 9 months prior. They sat on the porch right after her father passed, and she said, Herbie, you need to get life insurance. And he said, Spoily, she was only child, high yellow in the South, they called her Spoily. She said, ain't nothing gonna happen to me. You know how many of us right now, men, black men, white men, men who are in their prime, how much we know ain't nothing gonna happen to us. I'm good. Don't worry about me. I'm good. We straight. And she said, no, you need to get it. And the wife made sure that her husband got it. What if she would have just let him say, no, I'm good, and she would have rested with that? Not only would they have had to deal with the emotional strain of losing two men in the span of 12 months, in the span of a year, they lost both men of the family. But they would have also had to deal with the financial burden of trying to figure out how to keep this thing together. And now we have around 40 acres sitting right there in North Carolina. We were able to keep the land, build houses on it, and it's a family. We got gardens and all of that good stuff. It's a family environment, and it all came. It was all able to be sustained because of life insurance. Now, what I want is I want you guys to DM me, to message me, to call me, and let's share your story. If you have a hero in your family, his name needs to be known, or her name needs to be known. If you had a situation where it didn't go good, it was bad, it left a bad taste in your mouth, we want to know that story too. And we don't mind knowing that company that did it, because everybody has to be held accountable. That's the only way that people will trust life insurance, which is so important. It's the fourth most important thing that you're going to pay monthly. You're going to pay for your housing. You're going to pay for your transportation. You're going to pay for your food. And you better pay for that life insurance, because that's how important it is. Nothing else comes before it. Housing, transportation, eating, life insurance. That's what plans for your next generation. That's what a real provider and a protector does. So I hope to hear from you guys. Episode 1 of the N-Word podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it gave you a little something. Check me out on Instagram, on Facebook, the N-Word with Evan Dixon. the IN word with Evan Dixon. Talk to you soon. Peace.